Adam here from the Walser Automotive Group, and what I want to do today is take you on a test drive. So next to me here, I have a 2025 Subaru Legacy. We'll look at the interior, the exterior, some of the trim level specifics, then go for a spin around, see what it's like out on the road. Okay, so now we're behind the wheel of the 25 Subaru Legacy, and this particular one is the Sport trim. So all the way from the base model to the Touring XT, there's a couple different engine options as well as trim levels. The Sport gives you quite a bit of pretty cool equipment. So I wanted to pick this one to drive around. Obviously you can do less equipment or you can add a little bit more. Now the big thing, we've always got our phones with us, right? And this has a nice little storage cubby down here for my phone. It's gonna have a USB-C and a USB charger down there. And then we get wireless Apple CarPlay as well as wireless Android Auto. The system works very well on this 11.6-inch display. The base model would look a little different in the Legacy, but once you get up to the higher trim levels, this infotainment system is pretty cool and maybe worth the upgrade. But we'll cover that a little bit more. For now, let's put it in drive, go for a spin around. So let's begin by talking about the engine options. Now, both are going to be paired with a CVT transmission, but you've got a 2.5 and a 2.4. The 2.4 is going to be the turbocharged engine. So that's what this particular one has. That would be referred to as the XT. Now that goes from about 182 horsepower up to about 260. So it is a very noticeable difference. Now, like I said, with the CVT transmission, all of these Subaru Legacies are going to be paired with symmetrical all-wheel drive. Now, what that means is you always have all-wheel drive. It's not an intelligent system that disconnects. You're permanently in all-wheel drive. So for Minnesota winters, days like today where it's rainy and cold and possibly a little slippery, that is a pretty awesome safety feature to have. Now, what I really like about the Subaru Legacy is it's almost kind of like an Outback and lower down to the ground clothing. Now, what that means is it's going to share a lot of the similarities between the two. If you close your eyes and blink, you're in an Outback, and then all of a sudden you're in a Legacy, it would be kind of hard to tell the difference. Now, both are going to have the same engine options, both have the symmetrical all-wheel drive. The biggest difference is being a little bit of space. Now, I thought the Legacy would be a little bit of tightness inside for whether the back seats or the front seats, but again, I just feel like I'm in a Subaru Outback that's a little bit lower to the ground and maybe a little bit sportier to drive. Now, what's cool about the Legacy starting on the exterior is it does come with some pretty cool equipment. Now, the Sport does look a little bit different as well. So the appointments on the exterior would be a little bit different depending on trim level. This one gets a cool 18-inch wheel. You'll notice kind of that red accent with the gray that runs through the grille. You've also got the gray mirror caps on this model as well. And what I like a lot is that little kind of ducktail spoiler on the trunk lid. Just gives it that little bit of sportiness and almost kind of feels like that grown-up WRX. Feels like the business version of a WRX, if you will, but there's a lot to like in the Subaru Legacy, and again, some of the colors it comes with are really cool, and a few different interior options. Now, this particular one with the 260 horsepower, you can do paddle shifters here behind the wheel, and there is two different drive modes. So you've got the S and the I mode. The S definitely is a little bit sportier. If you put your foot down, it gets up and goes. I mean, it is fun to drive, especially with that symmetrical all-wheel drive. I think if you put a set of snow tires on these, this thing would be a monster come wintertime. But I mean, overall for day-to-day driving, it's comfortable, it's quiet in here. Now the Sport does get a lot of equipment as it's just below the Touring XT as the highest trim level. Now the interior, as far as the seats go, this is kind of a cloth and leatherette mix in here, and these are going to be heated seats for the driver as well as the passenger. Now what's great about these seats, you could eat up a ton of miles in here. There's just the right amount of comfort in these. Plus the driver's seat's going to be power as well as lumbar controlled, and if you got the heat going and you got it just set up right, you can easily do a 6-hour road trip and not even think about it. Now, the steering wheel on this particular model is going to be the leather-wrapped wheel, and it gets some of that red accents inside the vehicle with the stitching in here as well as on the shifter, but it's a heated steering wheel. So absolutely one of my favorite features, that heated steering wheel. It's a full 360 heat. You click the button and your hands are nice and toasty to go along with those heated seats. Back to the infotainment display here. Again, the 11.6-inch display. You can do built-in navigation if you opt for it, but I think with Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, a lot of people are going to be using that system. Text messaging, Google Maps, Spotify, it's all built into there. It makes it very safe to not be messing with your phone when you're on the go. Now, speaking of safety, this vehicle has a ton of safety features built into it. If I click the little car icon in the corner here, you can see the vehicle control. So obviously you're going to have your standard stability control and things like that, but you've also got steering responsive headlights, which can definitely help you out if you're maybe going to a campsite or driving on a dark, rainy road. Those are pretty cool. blind spot monitoring, emergency braking. There's an adaptive cruise control system in here as well. So you can set 4, 3, 2, 1 car length distances ahead of you. It's going to keep that distance on the road, and there's also a lane departure warning system. So you click the little steering wheel icon, and if you start to kind of sway out of your lane, it will give you a verbal beep from the infotainment screen, just letting you know that you might have drifted a little bit if you stop paying attention for a second. Now, there also is a driver mitigation system. So you see the little bar in the center here, that's gonna make sure you're paying attention to the road. And again, that pairs very nicely with the safety system. Also something that they added to the 25 model year limited trims would be the heated steering wheel, the sunroof, and that driver mitigation system. Now back to the rear seats. Like I said, maybe 95% of the time it's just you in the car. You're cruising around, going to work, going to the grocery store, gym. This car pretty much does it all. The rear seats, I was very surprised at just how much headroom I have. Where I drive comfortably, I'm 6'1". I had lots of knee space back there. There's USB charging, there's vents, whether that's maybe for the kids or the pets back there, the vents, the USB charging, the armrest. It is a really comfortable seat. And then the trunk space was also pretty impressive. I think you can fit something like 8 or 9 kind of standard airline bags back there. So there's a lot of room. You can easily throw a couple sets of golf clubs back there, or if you find yourself at IKEA, buy something you maybe weren't anticipating, the second row can fold down and you get a pretty large little cargo area back there. So usability doesn't really seem to be an issue with the Legacy. I think it can do almost most of what the Outback can do. I mean, it again just feels kind of like a shrunk down version of the Outback. If you don't need all the storage or the hauling capacity of the Outback, this one you can still put the roof rack up above with the cross rails, so you can throw the snowboards up there, the mountain bikes, and you know, just pretty much do everything you do in a regular Subaru. But fuel economy wise, with the 2.4, the turbocharged engine, there is a little bit of a sacrifice compared to the base 2.5. Now you're looking at about 31 mpg on the highway out of this model, where it does go up a few mpg if you're looking at the base engine. So fuel economy is important to you, you might want to go down that way. It would be tough for me to give it up. I think the difference between the 180 and the 260 horsepower, it's a pretty big jump, and it is a lot of fun when I put my foot down and it goes, it's pretty quick. I mean, that horsepower kicks in instantly with that CVT, and it is a lot of fun to drive when you're behind the wheel. So this one does get the dual zone climate control, which is nice. You can actually do it in the infotainment display to change the temperature, or there is still physical buttons on the side here. So you get the volume knob, the climate control buttons over here, and then the heated seat button is always on the bottom of the infotainment screen. While it's not a physical button, it's still always there. You don't have to go through a menu to access it, so that is pretty nice as well. Now, another thing that's pretty cool, you can also use the Subaru app and then remote start the vehicle. So if you got your phone, whether you're leaving your office job or maybe you just want to heat the vehicle up or cool it down, that's a pretty cool feature, being able to use your phone for that. One other thing I really like, I forget, when I get in these Subarus, the visibility is so good out of this vehicle. Now it adds this little window here on the driver and passenger side. Usually these pillars are pretty large on some of the new vehicles, so it does make it a little hard to see, but that added window certainly helps you out. And just the overall vision from where you can be in the vehicle, I got in and I was immediately comfortable. The ride is very compliant. The 18-inch wheels give you plenty of sidewalls, so these terrible Minnesota roads, it just kind of eats up some of the bumps and divots in the road, which is really nice. The steering isn't overly heavy or overly loose. It really is just something you can eat up a ton of miles in. I think if you set the adaptive cruise control on the highway, you're getting 31 mpg and just cruising. You could easily do a road trip in this vehicle. Day-to-day driving, it would be a perfect vehicle for that as well. Now, the interior appointments, like I said, you do get some of the red stitching in here. You've also got a little bit of kind of a storage cubby in front of the passenger there. And then on the door, you also get that stitching and kind of a cool material on the Sport model. It does look really good. Then, this one also adds the Harman Kardon sound system. That's one of those things that does make a pretty big difference over the base system. I had my Spotify going earlier, listened to a podcast or some tunes. The upgraded radio is a pretty big upgrade for this model, and I think something worth checking out. Now, what about the MSRP or pricing? So this one comes in around $36,700 for the MSRP. So you are teetering towards the top of the food chain here. If you're looking at the base model, you're kind of starting in the maybe high 20s, low 30s range. But when you look at the average new car price in the US at about 48 grand right now, you're getting a lot of car for your money at 36 or 37 grand. Wireless Apple CarPlay, the interior with the heated seats, the remote start capability, and I think the good look and style on the exterior of the Legacy, So I think if you're cross shopping, whether it's Honda, Toyota, or any of the other vehicles, I mean, even a crossover SUV, this seems like it can do a lot of what those vehicles are doing. I mean, even on this terrible patch of road, it's quiet, it's comfortable, it takes up the bumps nicely. I think if you were in the vehicle 95% of the time, like I said, it's just you cruising around, you can get great fuel economy and tons of comfort. I think this is a vehicle you might want to get out, take for a spin, and see what you think. Now that was just a quick look and drive at the 25 Subaru Legacy. Now if you have any other questions or you'd like to schedule a test drive, you can visit us online at walser.com or stop by anytime. We'd be more than happy to help. Thanks again for watching.